Hey, what's up, All right. So today, story is about group home story in the beginning. So, general overview of the book that I wrote, the movie script, is that I was born in East Oakland. I am from somewhere. I wasn't just born in the Oakland hospital. I lived in Oakland until it was time to go to school in kindergarten. Then I moved to Alameda. My dad still lived in Oakland, and Alameda represents somewhat of a segregated portion of the Bay Area. Racial discrimination, unfair policing, redlining. Essentially, the bridges served as a no blacks allowed portion of Oakland. So I was in Alameda. I enjoyed Alameda as a kid. Skater. I was a talented martial artist. I went to the Alameda CYA, and I would get medals for tournament fighting as a kid. But the Alameda CYA crumbled because the teacher he was unfaithful. The main founder, he ruined the whole school and all of our fighting careers. If you ask him, he'd probably just, living his life. But I saw people that had a promising future in tournament fighting give up martial arts after he was, he was unfaithful. One of the students was unfaithful, and they both were married, and they got together and broke up their families, and then they started acting in a malicious way. And I know for me, they offered me my black belt. Oh, hold on, you're shaking too hard. They offered me my black belt privately instead of picking it up at the tournament. That was my final straw. I said I deserve my black belt in front of Grandmaster. It was like, why don't you just come pick it up now? You're gonna quit when you get a black belt anyway. I said, what? I'll quit right now. I quit without picking up the black belt. My mom is the only witness, but I watched her listen to that voicemail, and we never trusted the founder of Alameda CYA again. Then I started skateboarding. Skateboarding got me in a lot of trouble because the skate world is where I started smoking weed and being bad. A lot of my friends who skateboarded were up to no good. They were trying to betray me to get to know girls, backbite, prove that they could fight better than me. I had some fights where I won all my fights at the skate park, so anybody that fought me back in that era lost. But they was obsessed with trying to prove that I wasn't cut from the cloth. So, had a couple key fights at the squares. Learned, just because I'm from Alameda don't mean I can't beat you up. And that still goes for today. I don't care what side of town you're from. Squabbling ain't from nowhere. Squabble is in the heart. So, I had a decent squabble growing up. I was all right. I wasn't the greatest. I wasn't the bravest. But when it's time to start punching each other in the face, I had a little bit of talent. I had a little bit of talent to not get hit, and I had a little bit of talent to hit. So, I started getting in trouble with the law after I saw that skateboarding wasn't taking anybody out of a life of crime, and it wasn't paying any of the black skaters at all. You know, I grew up with some very talented skateboarders, and they just fell privy to alcoholism, marijuana addiction, or worse. Okay. Getting in trouble with the law in Alameda looked like getting kicked out of Alameda High, sent to Island High. I went to base, and you know, I caught all my cases at school. My teachers and principals and stuff always called the police on me every time I got into an incident, and it was perpetual. It was a school to prison pipeline, because instead of calling my mom and telling her what happened, they would call my probation officer. And if I could point a finger at any particular catalyst, I would say that Elise Castro was a nightmare who loved calling the police on me. And she went on to try to climb the ranks in the school district and call herself an abolitionist. And she's abolition means you denounce slavery, you denounce the school to prison pipeline, you denounce the 13th Amendment, you denounce weaponizing the police. And she didn't learn those lessons when I was in high school, because she loved weaponizing that 911 phone call. So I started going to court. My judge was Paul Seaman. Paul Seaman, last name was really Seaman. He ended up getting in a little trouble, losing his license. You can look him up, Paul Seaman, Seeman. Anyway, they gave me chances. They told me if I get arrested again, I'll be going to a group home. Now, when I got arrested again, they told me, "Hey, bro, what you doing with your hair looking like that?" I had long hair. Hold on, let me put this. I had long hair, and I put my hair in twists. I twisted it all the way down. And this is a key, important part of the movie. The staff would always warn us that dreads were particularly banned in court, because some Oakland dudes with dreads ran up in one of the judge's house, tied the family up, and sexually assaulted a family member of Judge Red. Some people say they think it was Judge K, but those were the 3 judges back then. I'm not trying to get in too much trouble here, but yeah, that's my era. There was only 3 judges. It was Judge K, Judge Red, and Judge Seaman. And they loved sending people to YA. And I had come to court. Paul Seaman wasn't there. It was Judge Red. Judge Red said, "Excuse me, young man, are you planning on keeping your hair like that?" I said, "What's my hair got to do with anything?" He said, "We're going to reconvene. And if your hair is like that at the next courtroom, we will have no choice but to discuss CYA." I said, "Well, what happens if I cut it? What kind of deal you going to give me?" I stayed brave. I'm like, "Man, CYA, you trying to threaten me with YA? Don't worry about no YA." Now, I go back to the unit. I'm in the hall at the time. I go back to the unit, and I'm real close to these boys from Deep East Oakland. They went to this school called Castlemont. That's who I was kicking it with. I was kicking it with the Castlemont kids, because we shared this one enemy. There was a kid that got ran out of Oakland and he ended up going to school in Alameda. And I told him I'm from Alameda. They said, "Oh, you know what's his name?" And I was like, "Yeah." They were like, "He's all bad. He's all bad." I was like, "Okay, I'll send word back to the people that go to school with us," which I did. Anyway, being born in East Oakland and being in the system by 15, in a lot of ways, it was a reunion. I reconnected with East Oakland in that, you know what I mean, in that manner. And I was friends with all the Oakland kids in Alameda. So it was nothing out of the ordinary. I was 100% with the Oakland kids. They pulled me to the side. They said, "Bro, you don't want to go to YA because because of your look, you're gonna have to be with the others if in YA. Or if you do want to sit at the black table in YA, you're gonna have to get down. Maybe with a couple dudes from Oakland that don't know you, but definitely with the other brothers from other cities that are gonna look at you and go, "Oh, you ain't black. You can't sit with us." And I was gonna have to get down. And I thought about it. I was like, I don't mind. I'll fight to prove I am black. I'll get down with somebody that says I'm not. They said, it ain't like that, man. It ain't like that. You're not gonna win every fight in YA. You're gonna need a knife. I was like, They said everyone gets stabbed in YA at least once. That was the word back in my day. Everyone gets stabbed at least once. I said, really? He said, bro, just cut your hair. It ain't being soft. It's just the fact that you ain't really gonna be able to sit with the Oakland black, card. You're gonna have to sit with the others. You're gonna have to trust the Asians, the Samoans, and the Arabs. I said, They said, if you cut your hair, you're gonna go to a group home, you'll be all right. You can handle that. But this YA, and they get gay in YA, man. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to really, you're gonna have to hurt some of them dudes in there. They got bad plans in YA, and the staff lets stuff happen. Well, I'm gonna have to continue this story. I'm gonna have to finish part 2 a little later. But at the end of part 1, I did cut my hair. I cut my hair, and I ended up securing my space at a level 12 group home. But I was still in juvenile hall at the time. Now, as a part of part 1, I do want to include the time that my mother saw me get carried away by the police and the look of failure in her eyes. And that was my biggest regret, was putting that stress on my mom. So my second biggest regret was that there was a girl, her name was Remy. She wanted to, I wanted to go to prom with her, and I told her, and she said yes. But I ended up going to the hall for that long stretch. I wasn't gonna get out till I'm 18. I'll give you part 2 later. Thank you very much for tuning in to Group Home Story Part 1.